Oh, there we go. Where to start? Okay. Welcome everybody to episode 45 of Trek Live. What are we talking about today, Bill?
We are wrapping up season 1 of Star Trek Discovery, final, putting the bow on it, giving our kind of overall big picture take on the season. We did the Trekkie Awards last week, which was like the more category specific, nitty gritty look at it, I guess. But this is going to be just like an overall general conversation. It's been a month since season 1 ended. The finale premiered on February 11th. It's March 10th now, so it's been about a month. So we figured now is a good time. We've had a month to kind of digest the whole thing and let the whole story kind of percolate. And we kind of wanted to have like one last say on it before we move into full bore into other Trek stuff and kind of maybe leave Discovery behind a little bit as it relates to like specific topics, like just on Discovery. You know, obviously Discovery will make its way into other conversations that we have, I'm sure, because it's current and new and on our minds. But this is going to be the last Discovery specific topic for a little while, at least.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, because if you guys remember, we did a specific show on the finale, and then we kind of did the Trekkie Awards, and now this show is kind of just more overarching look at the season as a whole. So,
right,
I'm excited.
Yeah, which I'm looking forward to doing. I haven't really, I know we haven't really talked as a whole about the season as a show. It's mostly been episode specific or related to the Trekkie Awards when we've talked about it, even off air. So I'm curious to see what you think a month out of like the full bore season, you know, the whole story. And I want to hear what other people think too. Like if there are things that you want to poke holes in, you know, constructive criticism, things that you think they could have done better, things that you want to see them do in season 2 a little better. I'm definitely interested in hearing that. You know, favorite elements, favorite things that the show did. All that stuff is fair game today. So looking forward to hearing from everybody who's here. We see Adam, Grompler Zorn, and Rob already in the chat. So welcome, you guys.
Yeah, welcome, guys.
We look forward to hearing from you. So, like, just overall, like, what do you think? I mean, obviously, we both like it a lot. We're here doing a Star Trek podcast, and we talked about Discovery every week. It's no secret that we're a fan of the show.
Yeah.
And that it's a hit for us. But when you think of Discovery, now that it's been a month and you've seen the entire story of the first season, like, what comes to mind?
I guess what comes to mind for me first is that this is not like any other Star Trek season we've ever seen before,
Right.
and also that it has a great story and a different story structure than most Trek shows we've seen before. That's the first thing that comes to mind for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. For me, it's the structure, it's the serialized storytelling, it's the use of current today, you know, production values and you know how new and exciting it is visually are the first things that pop to mind. I think they're pretty undeniably successful traits of the show, things that I think really worked. But the other thing that kind of goes hand in hand, and I've certainly talked about this a lot on the show, even like through the Trekkie Awards and through our episode specific conversations, is I do think that they found a nice balance of serialized episodes, you know, having this big overarching story that runs from Vulcan Hello all the way through Will You Take My Hand. But there are elements in each episode that I think, for the most part, make most of the episodes standalone to some extent. You know, they're identifiable. They're not just one big soup. There are things that make each episode individual, which I didn't necessarily expect. I thought it was going to be much more, you know, one sprint, straight line, where the episodes were going to kind of feel the same tonally and be telling one individual like straight line story. There wasn't going to be a whole lot of deviation and new stuff coming in. I think we got that. I think we got a decent variety of kinds of stories. You know, Lethe is very different than Magic to Make the Satan's Man Go Mad, which is very different from than Despite Yourself or the Wolf Inside. You know, Vaulting Ambition's very different than you know, Choose Your Pain. Like there's they're not all the same recipe,
Yes.
which I'm grateful for, because, like we've talked about, also going back all the way to the beginning of Trek Live, like at the very, very beginning when we talked about why we love Star Trek. It's one of the things that I love about Star Trek so much is that episodes can do so many different kinds of things. It doesn't, like many TV shows where, each episode kind of feels like you kind of know what you're getting, exactly what you're going to get in a lot of shows when you get into them. There's no real surprises from a structural standpoint or the kinds of stories that they're telling. Where Star Trek, you can get all kinds of stuff. It's science fiction, but within the science fiction, it's not genre specific. It can do romantic comedy, it can do Western, it can do high concept science fiction, it can do character drama, it can do all these things. And Discovery, maybe not to the extent, it's certainly not to the extent of some of the older shows like Next Generation and Voyager, Deep Space Nine. It doesn't quite get there to that extent, but I think there are elements of it there. It's not dead, which I'm grateful for. I kind of expected that to be a thing of the past, and it's not completely gone. It's still an element of the show, which I think is kind of inherent to what Star Trek is, which makes me happy.
Yeah, I think that you can definitely tell that a lot of thought was put into the show, and you can tell like the people who made it, they know their Trek. I like that it's not like an overbearing, like there's references here and there. It's kind of a great balance for paying homage to really super fans like us, but also easy for newcomers to kind of come in and kind of dive into this new revamp of the universe. So I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think they definitely balanced the references. To me, it never felt like it was just egregious fan service. It felt like a lot of the things they were using were either organic to the story or things that weren't. They were either organic or they were helping to drive the story that they were telling. They weren't just throwing things in to say, "Ooh, look at us. We know this. We know that." Things like, referencing the Defiant in the Mirror Universe episodes is, that was a fine line to walk. I think because nothing ever really comes of it. They throw it out there for the fans, but I think it makes logical sense within the story that they would stumble upon this information and jump on it and be like, hey, we got to find more out about this. And while it doesn't ultimately lead to their escape and it's not a huge plot point moving forward, it makes sense within the universe for it to be something that would drive these characters to say, we need to know more about this. It might hold some keys to getting out of here. And even when they explain why it can't work later on, it's even that is like built into the canon. When Burnham is talking to Emperor Georgiou about the Defiant and kind of what her mission there is, Georgiou goes, you can't even go back the same way the Defiant came, because the people who were on that ship when they came here went crazy and killed each other. Like that space is not, which is all in the Tholian web. So they're finding ways to like throw in these canon references in a really kind of organic way and making them a part of this Discovery story, which I appreciate. It's not just throwing out toppings here and there with just a kind of a simple reference here or there. Like they're building on it and making it a part of the story. The other thing that really kind of is kind of immediately coming to mind when I think of Discovery is the surprises, like the twists. Some of them I think
work better.
Some of them were better than others, and I think the other thing to kind of emphasize is I think some of them, like Lorca, like Voq, because of the nature of like our type of fan and a lot of the fans out there on social media, like the ability to like pick it apart and share ideas in like such a real-time way helped us kind of unpack these twists. Where I think back if this show was out in 1987 when The Next Generation premiered, I think things like Voq's identity might have been a little more of a guarded secret. I think the ability to go out on the internet and discover that Shazad Latif's birth name is this, and connecting the name that they gave the guest star playing Vogue in the first couple episodes. Like, the internet gives us that ability to kind of get that information and share it in a wide way through Twitter and Facebook, and it becomes not surprising anymore. But I think back in the old days, it would have been like a whoa, they're really doing this, and they clearly they're throwing kernels out there in episodes before they identifiably say, "Yep, it's him. It's the same thing."
Yeah.
But I think that whole thing would have wrapped us up a little better, and kept us on edge a little better with like, "Oh, what, are they really doing this?" If the internet wasn't what it is, like, and that's, I don't know that that's the show's fault. I don't know how you do it in today's with fans like us almost. That are Star Trek fans are going to pick apart every tiny little bit of information they can find their hands on and analyze it to the hilt. And even like Lorca, because Star Trek fans know the universe so well and are watching for these things, and see things with the character's motivations and things he's doing. It's in our heads, where I think if somebody, like, you show it to a friend or somebody who's not totally bought into Trek, they're not going to know. They have no idea that Lorca is not from that universe. And that's what probably works way better for them. But there are other things in the show that I think were pretty well earned. Like, there were rumors from Frakes at the convention kind of leaking that the mirror universe was going to come into play. But if we didn't know that, if we didn't have any idea that that's where they were going, I think that would have been a really effective twist. Like, that kind of came out of nowhere and led to some good stuff. So I like how twisty and turny the show was, and how many times they kind of pulled the rug out from under us and went in a different direction than we were expecting.
That's kind of one thing that I found difficult, like, because like I wanted to get like the natural experience where, like, watching a Star Trek show week to week, because I've just been able to like binge it all this time. So I try to stay away from like all the talk on the internet, because I wanted to get that kind of vanilla experience like they had in 1987. So I feel like I kind of did that, but at the same time, it was difficult. But I think it made for a good experience. So that's just one thing I noticed going throughout the season is while I was watching it.
Right.
Yeah.
A question I've kind of been meaning to ask, and I think people have talked about it as a question or anything, but if we obviously love Jason Isaacs as Lorca. Like, I didn't nominate him for the Trekkie Awards, and I'm sorry for that.
Snub of the year.
It's the snub of the year. It may be the snub of all time for the Trekkie Awards, but he is amazing, and he does a great job playing that character. But if Lorca was a different actor, and because I don't know about you, but when I think of Jason Isaacs, I think of bad guys, villains.
Yep.
Like, he's that's his type. He plays a lot of shady characters. If Lorca was played by an actor who didn't quite have that reputation, and that twist comes, do you think the twist would have been more effective? Do you think we would have been less looking for it if from the outset? I think maybe you'll remember this, when Jason Isaacs was first cast as Lorca, people kind of initially were like right on the bandwagon going, hey, he's probably going to be a bad guy, because Jason Isaacs always plays the bad guy. So people were kind of on their toes right away, thinking, oh, he must be some kind of a shady, version of a Star Trek captain.
I can see that, and I definitely had baggage coming into the series, because it's just, I don't know, the way it was. And to that point, though, I think Jason Isaacs did a great job, because I feel like he like lulled us into the sense of safety, and like we believed in him, and at least from my point of view, I believed in him.
Yeah, mine too.
Because I did come into the show thinking that he was going to be a bad guy, or not like a captain we've seen before. So, but I think I have high praise for Jason Isaacs' performance, because he did lull me into that false sense of security and this guy's going to be good and stuff like that. So, I think I would have felt differently if it was a different actor, but I definitely am not sad that
It was
Isaac.
Jason Isaacs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So.
I agree. I think I think the casting's perfect.
Mhm.
We talked a lot about kind of our disappointment in a big sense when we found out when it was
Yeah, I was
confirmed that he was a Mirror
disappointed.
Universe character. I was disappointed too,
Yeah.
and I think the genius of that is as an audience we felt the same way the crew did. Like we were like, what? Like there was like betrayal and shock and like devastation on our end, just like it was on the crew. Like the crew's been following this guy for all these months and through all these missions, and rallying behind him and wanting to succeed for him. And we felt the same way. We wanted him to be our captain, and we wanted it somehow to work out so that he could be. So I think that was a really successful thing to put us in the shoes of Saru and Tilly and anybody on the ship that would feel betrayed by and shocked by that twist, because we certainly felt it. I know you and I both, like that night when Baltimore Mission premiered, we were both like like flattened out, like really, like it was kind of rough, because we really liked the actor and the character. So I agree. I'm glad it was Isaacs, but I do think if it was an actor who didn't quite have that type attached to him, maybe people would have been less on their toes and less expecting a twist like that. I think when Jason Isaacs gets cast in anything, you're always kind of waiting for, a wink and a shoot a drop.
Yep.
For him, that's gonna happen because he's around.
What do you want to see in season 2?
I kind of want to see more of the same as far as what they do with, like we talked about before, the canon references. I hope they find ways to work in, TOS, especially canon connections to TOS, without necessarily being too overt about it and having it drive too much of what they're doing. Like, I hope that there are ways, especially there's clearly stuff coming, because of the way the season ended with, our beloved Constitution class Enterprise showing up. There's clearly going to be something coming that's going to connect us in some way to TOS, and I just hope that they find a way to do that without necessarily making it about that. I hope that the show can stand on its own 2 feet and be about these characters and their arc, and not get too caught up in TOS connection. But the other thing that I'm hoping to see is more diversity within the episodes as far as like the types of stories that they're telling. I think of it, episodes obviously like Magic to Make the Same Span Go Mad, which is like a kind of crazy science fiction concept that has kind of a light tone to it. It's got a little more of a fun traditional Star Trek tone, and even like moments in like Lee at the beginning where she's training with Tilly, and like there's a lighter feel to it. And I hope that they can work in naturally some more of that kind of tone, because I think it's good at it. I think when the show goes kind of light and tries to be funny and have some levity, I think the show is good. I think it's good at it. It's not false and doesn't feel fake. I think the cast especially has such good chemistry, and the characters are kind of lived in now, and they have such identifiable traits and personalities that in those lighter situations they really kind of pop, and I hope they take advantage of that.
Yep.
What about you?
For me, I'd love to just to see Discovery stay true to its identity, and just stay true to what it's built up in season 1. Because in past Trek, like there's always been, and it's not like there's been other factors, but like just I feel like shows don't really know what they are until a little bit kind of down the road. But for Discovery, I'd like to just stay to its identity. We talked about it before, but the identity of Discovery is different and structure. And I think as far as storytelling goes, I would like to see them kind of stay in that area with the structure, like a book. Yeah, and I like to focus on what matters, because I feel like there's so much going on with fans, social media, the internet, all the kind of the background stuff. I like to kind of focus on what matters, and to me, what matters is producing a great television, and a great story, and that I think that's what I would like to see in season 2.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of the most important thing. Stay true to the identity that the show's built up. Do what the show does well, and keep building on what they've done. So that's big. I see Rob in the chat is pointing out that he says that it would be great to see more of the bridge crew as opposed to just kind of Tilly, Michael, Stamets, Saru. And I agree with that. I hope that they kind of flesh that out. I think they started to a little bit towards the end of the season. Nothing remotely approaching anything we've gotten in other Star Trek shows, but in episodes like What's Past is Prologue, when they're kind of all operating in unison, trying to get out of the mirror universe, I think some of the bridge crew kind of gets to shine a little bit. You get to see them in their jobs, doing their thing in a crisis situation. That felt good. And they talk a lot about that, I think, on Twitter. I feel like I've seen Ted Sullivan and people involved with the show talk about that. One of their goals for season 2 is to maybe perk them up a little bit and use them a little more. So I think we'll get that. I don't think we're going to get a whole lot. I think it'd be more like, TOS. I think we have our 5 main characters. TOS had 3.
The big
but
5.
I think we have our 5.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get another one thrown in there. Hopefully a new captain at some point here, or maybe not. Maybe Saru ends up the captain somehow. But I think we pretty much have the core of our main characters, and I think these bridge characters can be, useful and be interesting and add texture to the show. But I don't think they're going to move into the ensemble like the Deep Space Nine cast or anything like that. I think they're going to be mostly in the background. That's a guess. That's just a guess. But I just think that that's kind of the decision that they've made, from the beginning when they said that the crew, the perspective of the show is going to be different. The main character is not the captain, and it's not all going to take place on the bridge. It's going to be, more unconventional. It's not going to be the same format as the other shows. So I think they're going to be true to that. So I don't think they're going to shed a whole lot of time to those characters. But I do think they've heard the fans and know that we kind of want a little more out of those characters.
Grappler Zorn makes a great point. He says, yes, more exploration in general for me.
Yes.
I would definitely agree with that. It would be cool to see some exploration of new planets, introduce some new alien species.
Yes.
And also just continue to explore characters, because I think they did that in season 1. I think I would love to see just a continuation of that into season 2.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely agree. That's something that we get a lot. I feel like that's going on since 2009 came out. I know that's kind of that was your entry point, Dan. But as somebody who was into the fandom and heard the fans' conversation about 2009 at the time, and then Into Darkness, same kind of thing. People are always clamoring for, can't we just get like a straight exploration story, like go to a new planet, meet a new alien species, have something new happen. Instead of kind of retreading on some familiar territory. People are always hungry for that. They were hungry for that with the new movies, and they were hungry for that this year with Discovery. So I think that's the lesson maybe to be learned from the high ups is that you're going to make us happy if you go down that road and you do it well. Beyond, I think the reason people love Beyond in large numbers is that it kind of does that. That was the lesson that I think that they learned from the first 2 movies, is that was the direction to go in, do something new and go to a new planet and push out there and be about exploration and pushing the envelope. And I think people reacted to that movie in a positive way, largely for those reasons. And I think when we got little elements of it in Discovery, people were about it. But what's ironic is actually, maybe I take that back, because the episode that kind of does veer into that territory, CV, Pacem, Parabellum, is an episode that people are not so high on. Like it's usually cited as either the least favorite for individuals, or at least in that conversation. So the one time that they did kind of play that game and tried to go down that road with like exploration, new aliens, new planet, classic Star Trek tropes, people weren't so high on it. So maybe they just need to do it a little better. Maybe they need to put the focus on it a little more and such. But I hope they embrace that idea and go down that road. Yeah. Rob also says more exploration of new alien species like the Kelpians. I would love to see more about the Kelpians, more about Saru's background and what that planet's like and what being a Kelpian is like, beyond just his experience. That's there's all kinds of fascinating territory to explore with the Kelpians and Saru. Yeah, so that's high up on my list.
Yeah, and don't we have like the android robot looking lady on the bridge?
Yeah, we don't really know anything about
I'd
her.
love to see like the exploration of that too. It would be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty of territory for things that they've introduced and that they already have to just extrapolate and do more with. There's more there. I think there's clearly more to talk about there with Stamets and Culber. Like they've really telegraphed that we're definitely going to get that in season 2. That story's not over, and that's one of the, like, there are a few things that the producers have kind of floated out there as things you can chew on for the time being, knowing that they're going to be around. And they've definitely teased that little tiny spore that lands on Tilly's shoulder in I think what's past his prologue. Like they've definitely said pay attention to that. That's going to factor in. So they've given us little hints. I feel like I've seen the showrunner say that one of the bigger themes of season 2 is going to be like science and faith, science and religion. Like there's going to be some element of that, which Star Trek has kind of treaded on before with Deep Space Nine, but there's certainly new territory to be mined there. So we know little tiny kernels of things that might come in season 2, and so far what I've heard is exciting. I think there's opportunities for some big stuff to do. Finding out what Detmer, Rob says, finding out why Detmer has those implants and what they do. And these are things that they can accomplish with like a few lines of dialogue. It doesn't have to necessarily be like an episode just driving that's about Detmer. I would love to see an episode about Detmer, but just put Detmer into a situation where she can have like a natural conversation with one of the other members of the crew about her life and what's going on. And there's all kinds of ways to do it, and I hope they get creative and find ways to develop those characters and to add to the texture of the crew of the ship. Yeah,
because I think that they've like built a solid foundation in season 1, and I think it's just generated so much potential for season 2 that I'm super excited.
Definitely, yeah. The other thing, real quick, that I think is one of the things that I'm happiest about with Discovery is I do think that the 5 main characters, the 6 main characters, if you count Lorca, which he's in the main credits, but 5 main characters that we still have, is I think their arcs were all really good. Like if you go back to the episode that they first appear in, whether it's Burnham and Saru and the Vulcan Hello, or pretty much everybody else in Context is for Kings, they all change a lot over the course of the season, and there's like satisfying resolutions to where their characters go. Like their arcs are like there's opportunities to keep building and keep moving forward, but they have like satisfying arcs already. They've already grown like in a quantitative way. Seeing Saru in the Vulcan Hello, like I said last week when I was defending him winning my Trekkie Award for series lead, his arc going from being afraid to go out to do a spacewalk with Burnham to go find out what an artifact is out in space, to being in command of the ship in a crisis situation, and life and death situation, to get out of the mirror universe is well earned and really a successful character arc. And I think his is maybe the most easily pointed to, and like, okay, there's an A and a B that's like clear. They all have them, but that's just one example that I'm really happy with. And obviously Burnham has a great arc too. She comes an incredible long way from the Vulcan Hello to Will You Take My Hand, and learns a lot and changes a lot. And I think when you go back and you rewatch it, especially in like a binging kind of way, where you watch it in quick sequence and maybe over a weekend, it's really evident, Burnham's arc. I think it's really successful and well done. Anything else for you? Like as far as really stand out about the season in a positive way or in a negative way? They could have done better. Things that
I don't think so. I definitely miss it.
Yeah,
It was
me
really
too.
fun to um, kind of experience Trek week to week.
Yeah.
This is like I said, it was my first kind of show going through it like that.
Hmm.
Um, it was um, interesting to and fun to kind of come back on here on the channel and kind of use this as a platform to kind of process and talk about my thoughts about the series. And it was a really fun time, and I'm looking forward to season two. So
Me too. Yeah, I miss it a lot, and I agree. Like, it wasn't my first time around with
hmm
New Trek, but it was my first time around with New Trek, like everybody else, in a long time, 12 years, I think. Uh, so it was really cool to be able to watch a new episode of Trek every week. Like, that can't be overstated.
yeah.
How, like, if, I've talked about this before, that I was born in 1987, the same year TNG premiered. So as long as I can remember, from the time I was a young kid, like in kindergarten,
hmm
all the way through I graduated high school the year Enterprise was canceled. So like my entire school career, up until college, there was a new episode of Star Trek every week, and
hmm
for a lot of it, there were two every week. So kind of capturing that feeling again, and like sitting around watching football on a Sunday and going, man, there's a new episode of Star Trek on.
Yeah.
Like, it was just like a really cool feeling, and
hmm
couldn't can't wait for it to be back again.
Yes.
Yeah.
We can move on to the kind of second half of the show. If you guys read the title, Bill, I'll let Bill explain it because it's his thing.
Yeah, so I did this a few weeks ago. I, as most people who follow me on Twitter know, I rewatched Star Trek twice so far on Twitter, and through that I ranked everything. I gave every episode an episode grade, and I stacked them from 1 to 707, I think it was, up until recently,
Mm-hmm.
from best to worst. And I did it one episode at a time. I slid them in as I went. This was done pretty long before Discovery, and over the last couple of weeks, I settled on episode grades for each of the Discovery episodes, after watching them all a handful of times. Obviously, I watched them all when they aired, and I would usually watch them once or twice through the week,
Mm-hmm.
waiting for the next one. And then before the finale, I watched it all, again. I binged it over the course of that last weekend of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I have, like I said, given all the episode grades, and I've slid them into my existing rankings. So now it's 15 episodes longer, instead of 707. It's whatever that is. And yeah, this is going to be the first time that I've shared that publicly. I've put that out there. We have some handy dandy screenshots, I think,
Yes.
to illustrate where this is a difficult thing to do because it's so big. There's 700 some things. It's very difficult to, like, okay, here's a chart of 700 episodes that you can easily see, like, top to bottom. So what we did was I took screenshots of the episodes that are surrounding each one of the Discovery episodes, so you can kind of see where it sits in relation to other existing Star Trek stuff. And I think we're going to start at the bottom of the list.
Yes, you're good to go with
Screenshot is on
the first
screen.
Yes.
We have this is really cool. Thank you, Dan,
Yep.
for putting this together.
Yeah.
So Butcher's Knife Cares Not for the Lamb's Cry is my least favorite episode of Discovery, season 1. I gave it a C-, which I guess the important thing to emphasize when I do these is a C or a C- for Trek is a solid B+ on regular television for me. Like, it's good TV. I'd rather be watching this than most other TV out there. So this is not like, I'm not saying The Butcher's Knife Cares Not for the Lamb's Cry is bad television. I'm saying it's slightly below average Star Trek, if in my opinion. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail about each episode. That would take a long time, and I don't want to necessarily go there. But I'm definitely curious to hear what you guys think as we go through this, and I'll certainly respond. But The Butcher's Knife Cares Not for the Lamb's Cry is an episode that is maybe a little too dark for its own good. I think it's maybe one of the least enjoyable rewatches. Watching the tardigrade get tortured and some of the Klingon stuff in that episode, I think maybe drags a little bit. You know, it's some of the least successful Klingon stuff. I think we get much better Klingon stuff in the pilot and in some episodes that come later. But yeah, that's my 15th episode, and I'm pretty confident in that at this point. But if you guys disagree, is that a fair approximation? Do you think? Is that you know, I know the popular opinion as the least favorite Discovery episode so far is CV Pacem Parabellum, but if anybody disagrees, you know, I'm certainly open to hearing. So this next screenshot has 2 episodes on it. These are 2 episodes that I gave a C to, CV Pacem Parabellum and Vaulting Ambition. So in other words, these are kind of middle of the road Star Trek stuff as far as I'm concerned. You know, there are things about them that are successful. They're not failures by any means. There are elements of the episode that really work, but I find them a little uneven. There are things that drag them down a little bit. You know, Vaulting Ambition I have at 14. I think the conversation that I kind of talked about earlier, talking about the Defiant, is a really good scene, and I think everything with Stamets and Culber in that episode is really good. But kind of like The Butcher's Knife Cares Not for the Lamb's Cry, and maybe this is a me thing, you know, when Discovery goes uber dark, like really, really dark, I tend to push back a little bit. And those are the 2 episodes to me that I think are the darkest. And that probably explains why I kind of pushed them down the list a little bit. And I know Rob's saying he really enjoyed Vaulting Ambition, but no, it is not just you. It's more just me and Dan. Dan agrees with me on this. That
yes,
we're not quite as high on Vaulting Ambition, but as you can see in these, I think my head is blocking it a little bit. But the Twitter poll results for Vaulting Ambition were very good. It's a well liked episode based on the community response that I saw. I think I'm in the minority on that one. And CV Pacem Parabellum is kind of in the same boat. I think it's interesting to see them go the exploration route and that kind of play with those old Trek tropes, being on a planet side, and there are elements of I think Doug Jones is really good in it. I think his performance is really strong, but I think it's a little light and a little thin. It's short. I feel like there was more to do, more to expand on the planet and the Pavins. I think it's just a little thin as far as I'm concerned. Next screenshot, I have The War Without the War. I gave that a C plus, I believe.
Yep.
C plus.
C plus.
So pretty average, like right in the middle of the road Star Trek for me. It's and I'm sure the episode right above it is probably controversial. A lot of people love that episode. Probably probably too low on my initial rankings here. But yeah, it's War Without War Within is kind of the tale of 2 episodes for me. I think the first half of it, dealing with the fallout of coming back from the Mirror Universe and the 6-month jump, and you know, giving the explanation for why the Mirror Universe has to be classified and kind of held close to the vest and secret, and building that into the war and everybody having lost people and the temptation to, you know, go meet a mirror version of somebody that you loved and lost in the war, I think is really, really kind of cool. I was satisfied with that explanation. I thought that was really good. The first half of that episode I think is pretty strong, but I think the exposition of the second half kind of gets bogged down a little bit as far as I go. Choose Your Pain. I struggle with this one. I know, Dan, this is a big one for you.
This is one that for me on my list is a little bit higher, but I get the kind of counter argument of why people kind of held it lower down on their lists.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's good. It's a B minus, like I said, for Trek is above average, moderately above average Star Trek. For me, there's a lot about it that works. I love the Saru stuff. I wish there was a little more of that. I guess one thing I wish was maybe it was a little more balanced, a little more Saru stuff on the bridge. I love every time we go to that in that episode. It's another one that, you know, it's very dark. It's violent. It's heavy on the Klingon in the Klingon brig. But it sets up a lot of stuff. I think the Harry Mudd stuff and it's really good. You know, there's a lot of interesting stuff revealed with Lorca and what we think his history is with the brand. There's a lot of interesting stuff, but it's a lot of setup. It's a lot of teeing things up that are going to pay off later, and not so much, big payoff moments. It's definitely another one. It's a pretty popular episode, as you can see on the Twitter poll. This is a pretty common theme, and I think it's probably a product of it being so new and people being excited about it. But if you pay attention on these screenshots to the Twitter polls, the poll results are tending to be much higher for the Discovery episodes than the surrounding episodes
yes.
on these lists. These are much more popular than I'm tending to place them. Will You Take My Hand? I gave a B. I think it's good. I think the back had kind of similar to some of these other ones where I think, sometimes tail two episodes. I think the stuff on Kronos is pretty good. I'm not in love with everything that happens on Kronos on the Orion in the Orion embassy, but I think the last 10 or 15 minutes of that episode are spectacular. And it's not just the twist. It's not just the Enterprise coming out of nowhere. It's the scenes with Sarek and Amanda and Burnham, I think, are excellent. I think Burnham's speech is really good. It's getting the payoff of people getting promoted and feeling like there's just a real sense of hope and excitement in that last 15, 20 minutes with some real resolution. Like we talked about in that episode, we got resolution in a sense in that one season of Discovery that we didn't necessarily really get for like Voyager. We get things at the end of this season of Discovery that I think we've all been hungry for Voyager, and maybe even a little bit more of an Enterprise after the Xindi. We get a little bit of it in that episode Home, but Will You Take My Hand kind of plays up on those things that we want from those other shows. Battle of Binary Stars, I also gave a B. Certainly talked a lot about that. It's another one that's it's a little short. It's I think it's like 38 minutes long, which is fine. I've talked about that before. I'm not somebody that gets like hung up on, if the episode's got to be as long as it's got to be. But that's one that I think maybe there was a little more to do than maybe they did to flesh things out. But there's some really great stuff in that episode. Burnham breaking out of the brig is certainly the highlight for me. That's probably my favorite scene in it. But the battle on the Klingon bridge with Georgiou going down is also very memorable. Some really great special effects. That's the Trekkie Award winner for visual effects, deservingly so, in my opinion. Vulcan Hello, I have it 8, B+. The optimism in the first half of that episode, the Burnham and Georgiou relationship before it goes bad, I think is really interesting stuff, really well done. Magic to Make the Satan's Man Go Mad is number 7, so just outside of my top 5. I know everybody's really big on that episode. A lot of people, at least, are big fans, and that was a common episode to cite as a favorite. I know there are probably some people in the chat, I think, if memory serves. Maybe, I don't know. Rob, I think your favorite is not. Your favorite is What's Past Prologue, if I remember correctly. So it's a common episode to cite as a favorite, but not quite as high for me, but it's definitely in the upper half and really, really good Trek. What do we have next?
Starting to get into the heavy hitters now.
Yeah. So these next 3 are all in the top 200. They're all in the A- range. Despite Yourself, Lethe, and Context is for Kings. We're getting into some really heavy territory here. If you look at surrounding episodes, I'm seeing like the Jem'Hadar and Little Green Men and The Enemy. There's some favorites. Star Trek 3 I have in that range.
Yes.
Star Trek 2009. So these are pretty high quality. A- is obvious. Like the best of Trek. For me, an A- is pretty freaking great. Not necessarily like all-time classic territory. When we get into A's, I'm talking more about the very, very best and true classics. Where I'm not quite there with these yet. These can obviously change over time, and watching them 100 times to come, things are likely to move up and down a little bit. But as of right now, I'm pretty comfortable with where these are. Next screenshot, we have The Wolf Inside and What's Past is Prologue. My kind of runners up for my favorite episodes of the season. What's Past is Prologue, I have just outside my top 100, which is a tough nut to crack. But The Wolf Inside breaks just into the top 100. So I have 2 episodes in the top 100 from the first season, which is pretty par for the course for other Star Trek seasons. For that top 100 is pretty popular. Like most seasons have 2 or maybe 3 episodes in there. The really good seasons might have 4 or 5, like TNG seasons 3 and 4. And then towards the top of the list, we have Into the Forest I Go, which is 48th, my number 1 episode of Discovery on my top 100 list. Which, yeah, this was very difficult to do, and it's the difference between this and everything else I ranked, like all the surrounding episodes. Like I said, I did like one at a time. They were, you know, I would watch the Corbomite Maneuver and slot that in relation to everything I just watched. Where this, I'm trying to slide episodes into a ranking that I built 2 years ago. So in the semi near future, there may be a new project coming that might change this up a little bit by putting everything on a more level playing field. But as of right now, this is what I'm comfortable with, and I'm confident that it's an accurate representation about how I feel about these episodes past Trek. The Twitter poll results, Rob, when I post an episode poll, like when I would review episodes, when I was doing rewatches, I would always post a poll for an A, B, C, or D, and each of those grades has a number assigned to it. An A gets a 4, a D gets a 1, D or an F gets a 1, and I would just average those responses out. I would come up with how many A's were given, how many D's were given, average it out, and that was the number.
So this might be like a deep question, and you may need thoughts on it. But how does season 1 rank in your rankings? Season 1 of Discovery rank with other season 1 from past Trek.
It's funny you ask. I'm pulling up my spreadsheet as we speak,
Okay.
Because I with those statistics, like with those grades, each one of those grades has a numerical value. Like an A- is a 3.7, an A is a 4,
Okay.
a D is a 1. So when I put all those in, I have Star Trek Discovery's first season ranked 4th.
Okay.
It's my 4th favorite Star Trek season, I guess, statistically speaking. I think the first season of TOS is, well, I don't think I know, based on the statistics. TOS season 1 is my number 1, and 3 and 4 of TNG are 2 and 3. But there's not a whole lot of separation. It was close. It was 0.3 of a point below the first season of TOS. So it's up there. I would comfortably say that it's one of the best seasons of Star Trek. It's helped by the fact certainly that there's 15 episodes instead of 26. That helps it statistically, and because of the nature of the show being serialized, I think it helps with not having, like, the show just doesn't have many misfires because they're not trying to do all these different kinds of storytelling and different kinds of episodes. So there aren't many misses. So I kind of knew coming in that it was probably going to be pretty high up on that list, and came true.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have it in my top 5 seasons of Star Trek.
Dang.
But without, you haven't done all those statistical things. But just on a gut reaction, a month out, where would you put it? Do you think? Like, do you think it's in the upper half of Star Trek seasons?
I think it's definitely in my top 5. I'm curious to see how time changes that, if it goes up, if it goes down, because we have the benefit of seeing all this Trek for so long, so it's hard to kind of gauge early on. But I guess my early thoughts are just it's definitely high in my list. I think that's good because we talked about this before, but TV is so different now, and I think you got to hit the ground full sprint, and I think that's what they did. So it's definitely a good thing that it's high and it's very strong.
I guess something I'm interested in. I know Vaulting Ambition is an episode that you with and that you kind of have towards the bottom of your list. Which episodes, and this would kind of drive, I guess, your where this would fall statistically, or if you were going to grade episodes, like what episodes would drive the season down a bit? Like which episodes were like with a month hindsight, like which episodes would be like misfires in your mind? Like,
That's so tough. Uh, that's really tough because I really believe to say super positive
absolutely, I do too.
because to me I don't know, it's tough because I feel like I have a bias in that this Star Trek Discovery being my first show, quote unquote, that I've watched
live. Yeah.
Live. I think it's like I've got a connection to it, so like I may hold these episodes higher than other episodes of Past Trek.
Yeah, sure.
So that's tough. Yeah.
The only one that I would say, like the C- grade is kind of indicative of it's slightly below average in my mind. In the Star Trek context, is the Butcher's Knife. That's the only one that I would maybe inch towards like below average territory. Even Vaulting Ambition is a real struggle for me because that's one that there are things in it that I am not over the moon about, but there are things in it that I do love. I love all the between Culber and Stamets in the mycelial network when he's trying to get out.
Yeah.
The mirror like 2 Stamets scenes are really good too. And Michelle Yeoh's really good. Like there are things in it that really work. There are things in it that I find a little more problematic. So it's more of a mixed bag, and it's more maybe into average territory, like middle of the road. So the reason that this season sits so high for me is that there are not many misfires, like real misfires, D plus, D episodes that I would say are, man, that they missed the boat on that one.
Yeah.
So I would agree with you. I mean, it's hard to find one that when you use the word like misfire or whiff, there aren't many episodes that I think really deserve that kind of conversation. But we're more positive on the show as a whole than some others. So I think that's where we sit. But Groppler Zorn says that Discovery gets the benefit of the honeymoon phase.
That's spot on.
Yeah, that's it, and it is. It's true. I feel the same way every time there's new Star Trek. I find that time, allows me and with anything to get some perspective and center my opinion a little bit. I was a huge Into Darkness fan when it first came out because it was new and I was hungry for it, and there were things in it that I loved. And time, I still am a fan of it. I think it's better than a lot of people do. But I have come back down to earth a little bit on it. And I'm maybe a little more realistic about it now than I was in 2013, I think it was. So Discovery is going to be no different, I'm sure. If I, when I watch these again in 5 or 10 or 15 years, things are going to look a little different. I'm sure. But this was me trying to be as, trying to remove myself from that honeymoon phase as much as I could and trying to be objective, but it is very difficult when it's new and you love it. And you're comparing things that you've seen 3 or 4 times or twice maybe to things that you've seen, all those surrounding episodes on those lists, on those screenshots were episodes that I've seen many, many, many times. So they're very different things.
Yeah.
As of right now, they're difficult to compare.
Yes, but I think we've done a good job. For sure, you've done a good job of placing that in there. Yep.
Cool.
Yes. Any final thoughts?
Not really. I would just say that I hope that, I guess my pitch to people that might be more skeptical of Discovery would be that, like we just kind of talked about with this honeymoon phase for us, I think it goes both ways. I remember a lot of negativity towards Enterprise and a lot of negativity towards Voyager even, that has been dulled over time as people have grown used to these shows. And I hope that people who fall more on the strongly negative side of Discovery who love Star Trek are willing to, take some time and maybe give it a fresh take in the future, and maybe, maybe they'll come around and find things in it that they like. There's nothing saying they have to. That it's all a matter of opinion, and there's going to be shows that people like and don't. But history has taught me that time brings people back down to earth a little bit, like we were talking about the honeymoon phase, but it also brings some people's opinions up when the passionate, kind of fear and apprehension about new Trek wears off, and people go back for fresh perspective, I guess.
Yep.
But I'm looking forward to maybe over the summer, watching it again. I know I said at the beginning, this is going to kind of be it for Discovery for a little while on Trek Live, but I'm sure, as we get more news on season 2 and we get an idea of when it's going to premiere and things leak out about what they're doing, we'll
fire up the rumor mill.
Yep. We'll be attacking the rumor mill and, unpacking everything we can get our hands on. And I'm sure, I know one thing I'm planning on is, in the next few months, checking out Discovery again. And I'm thinking, Dan, you probably will too. So
yes.
if we come back around to it and watch it again in the coming weeks and months, I'm sure we'll be back to talk about it here and there. But we're definitely looking forward to other Trek conversation in the immediate future.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate that, man. This is episode 45 of Trek Live. We're approaching the big 50.
Yes. Thanks, everybody.
Yep. And we're also approaching our 1-year anniversary at the end of the month.
Yeah, so we do have some stuff planned for that, for sure. So we're super excited about that.
Yeah, definitely. In fact, Adam points out episode 47 is the one to celebrate. And episode 47 will be our 1-year anniversary.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's, the world has interesting ways of working.
Yes.
Yeah, really cool. Definitely looking forward to the future. We have a lot of cool stuff planned as we get into year 2 of Trek Live. We're hoping to put the foot on the gas a little bit and do some new stuff. And we have a lot of exciting stuff, a lot of exciting things planned. I'm really looking to getting all that out there, and stay tuned. There's a lot of cool stuff coming.
Yep. Real quick, before we wrap this up, any Star Trek podcasts?
I did. I listened to an episode of Metatreks for the first time in quite a long time. Their latest was in a look at like remote control war as it relates to the Arsenal of Freedom.
Yeah.
Season 1 episode. That's pretty recent in your mind, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really good. I used to love them. I kind of, when Discovery took over and a lot of my podcasting time went to Discovery content, I fell off and fell behind on a lot of these other shows. But Metatreks is a really good show. The philosophy of Trek is their topic on Trek FM. So it felt really good to listen to them again and get connected to them again. So I'm hoping to maybe go back into their backlog and check out a lot of other stuff that I've missed in that time while Discovery was eating up a lot of my time.
Yeah.
But that, and also I didn't listen to it yet, but I have Primitive Culture episode on the queue. I'm looking forward to getting caught up with them again. That was a big time favorite again before Discovery kind of came and took up a lot of time.
Took over everything.
Yeah, it really did. Yeah, Trek on the Tube. Good to see you. I have checked out your channel. You guys do a lot of cool stuff over there. Appreciate you stopping by as we're wrapping up here. But hopefully you'll get to tune in next week and the weeks to come. We have a lot of cool stuff coming, and looking forward to having you back when we're, in the midst of the conversation, in the future.
Yep. Real quick about the podcast, I have just a podcast to highlight. It's called The Hyacinth Disaster, and it's an audio drama. And I know you guys are saying, like, Dan, is this the 1950s? No, it is not. This is super awesome, and I think that you guys should check it out. Don't be kind of turned away with audio dramas. It is a very good listen. I definitely recommend it.
Can you give us like a quick synopsis of the overall, like what kind of story is it?
So it's like a futuristic sci-fi. It's about a ship, the Hyacinth, that is drilling for asteroids, and it's kind of a sci-fi mystery thing. And it is it's very well produced, very high quality, great acting. Um, so I think everybody should check it out. I can't recommend it enough.
Great. Yeah, I have it on my queue. You told me about it earlier in the
Mhm.
week. I just have to find, like, it's not something I want to listen to at work. Make sure I'm listening to it and giving it my full attention.
Yeah, you have to give your full attention. It's not a work
Mhm.
thing. It's maybe going to bed or
Driving, like you said.
driving. Yeah, that's when I listen to it. So definitely check that out.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
it's on my queue, and I'm looking forward to checking it out and talking to you about it.
Mhm.
But I'll definitely let you know when I do.
Yep.
Yeah.
On that note, guys, we're gonna be wrapping up episode 45 of Trek Live. We had a great time talking about some Discovery. The discussion doesn't have to
Sorry.
stop here. Go ahead.
Do we know what we're doing next week?
I looked at the
Mhm.
schedule. I don't have it in front of me, but do you have it with you?
I think if, assuming we don't call an audible and change it, I think
Mhm.
what we plan to do is talk about Star Trek Motion Picture, which is
Yep.
an interesting topic that a lot of people have mixed thoughts on. There's very polarized sides of that conversation out there. People love it, people hate it.
Mhm.
So if you haven't watched it in a while and you're not real up on it, and you want to tune in and have a conversation with us about it, I definitely recommend maybe checking it out this week, watching it through the week, next weekend, to share your thoughts. And we'll definitely be doing that ourselves. Like I know I'm planning on watching it at some point this week. I have it on my DVR. It was on HBO, I think, earlier in the week, so it all worked out. I can pop it on whenever I want. Yeah. So definitely look forward to talking about that. I know I have feelings. I have a nostalgic connection to that movie that is unique, and it's a unique animal in the Star Trek world. It's its own thing, and I think it's an interesting conversation to have.
Yes, and I feel like it's one of those topics that doesn't get talked about a lot, or at least I haven't talked about it a lot. So it should be a good show next week.
Yeah, it's something that I don't think we've touched on at all on this show.
Yes.
I don't think we've talked even 1 minute about the motion picture. So, and we've talked about a lot of stuff because we do a lot of broad topics, all kinds of things. So, this will be it'll be refreshing to talk about something that we've really never dived into. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yep.
Cool.
So that's been episode 45 of Trek Live. That rhymes. Kind of. Definitely the discussion doesn't have to stop here. Come over to Twitter, Facebook, Trek, movies, podcast recommendations. Definitely join the conversation. And we'll see you guys next week.
Look forward to it.